decisions we make.
Yep.
And the more you can kind of drill into who you are and what affects you and those things, you have more of a say in that story than you would think. So many times, the story we tell ourselves, we talk ourselves out of a lot. But if
Mm.
you start really like drilling in and knowing, okay, if I do A, and go out really late till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. one night, I need to get my body sleep the next couple days. And most of us don't really plan like that. And it was just something that really worked for me. And I found other people who struggle with ADHD like I do have been able to have a path of, okay, this is how I can kind of, I know it started off rocky. This is how we navigate and get back to
Right,
normalcy
right,
and
right.
calm.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious. Motivation. Be audacious. Innovation. Be audacious. Inspiration. Be bold. Motivation. Be audacious.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where we explore bold, brave steps you can take to live your best audacious life ever. I'm your host, Audley Stevenson. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I really want to thank you for carving time to invest in yourself. You know, your commitment to growth is what fuels transformation. Now, I want you to think of your mind as a map of uncharted territory. Every thought, every belief, every perspective is a landmark that guides your journey. By navigating it carefully, charting your course, adjusting your route, and learning from obstacles, you can discover paths you never imagined existed. Anxiety, often seen as a roadblock, can actually be a signal on your map, pointing you toward areas that need attention. Instead of avoiding it, we can embrace it as a guide, showing us where growth awaits. Visualization becomes our mental renaissance, letting you rehearse challenges and prepare for your success. Emotional regulation, well, that's your steering wheel and compass. Mindfulness and self-talk help you steer through turbulent feelings, keeping your journey on course even when the winds of life shift unexpectedly. And then daily reflection acts like checking your map at every crossroads, ensuring your decisions align with your destination you truly want to reach. Now, today I'm thrilled to welcome David McKee. He's the CEO of Another Angle Consulting and a passion advocate for mental health and mindset coaching. David empowers individuals to navigate their mental landscapes, turning anxiety and adversity into resilience and growth. His personal journey marked by real challenges has given him insights that resonate with anyone striving to overcome obstacles and live fully. In this episode, we'll explore David's strategies from shifting mindset, embracing emotions, and transforming your life. So now that we're all set, let's dive in and check out what David's got to share. Enjoy. Hey, David, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Honored to be here.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I always talk about how I consider it a blessing to be able to kind of engage in dialogues that certainly can help individuals, navigate the challenges of life and sort of get through those pitfalls, obstacles, whatever you want to call them, to get to the other side. Because on the other side is where all our greatness lies, but we got to get there. Don't last that adversity to get there. And I think one of the sort of analogies we oftentimes use, we talk about life kind of being a journey, and on your and it's our own individual journey. Whatever Sally's doing or Tom is doing over there, it's cool for them, but it's their path, it's their, what's intended for them. And so, with that in mind, you had to have your own journey, your own challenge, and some mental health challenges, and learn how to overcome those. And now you're looking to help individuals sort of do the same for their own pathway. And so, maybe as a starting point, David, I can invite you in to introduce yourself to our audience, talk about the work that you do, and what's gotten you to the point that you're at now.
Sure. So my name is David McKee. I am the CEO of Another Angle Consulting. We are a consulting company that started off as a finance and accounting consultant supplier, more or less. and it's verged or gone the route of more of the mental health and psychology route of how can we help people fix mindsets, work on whether you're in writer's block or if you're a struggling performer who used to do really well at a company, and life happens and we all go through whatever it is that we go through. We all have our issues. And when you're talking about kind of leading into that question, I'm really big into the whole mindset of Sonder, and that Sonder is that we're all the main character in our own stories. And it's a really healthy way of looking at things to, especially if you get angry at a situation or at a person of what you're going through, of what are they thinking? What's it coming at from their end? Because so many times we get triggered or emotional based off our side of it. And when you see what other people are dealing with, and usually it's if they have a family, if they have kids on that on down, that decision is them based. And you could be as great as you want to be or what you think are in the best position for that person, but if push comes to shove and they have to do something for their family, that's usually the way it goes. So it's trying to find that route of when you just know, okay, that's what they had to do, that's in that similar situation. If you can make peace with that, it usually helps things come across much easier.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. I think I agree with you on that one. Certain a lot of your work is sort of rooted in your own sort of personal experiences,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering if there's a specific thing or whether there's several things that kind of shape how you now help others.
Yeah, so it's I'll try to keep this as concise as
Sure,
possible. So I'm not I can ramble. So reel me in if I keep going.
no problem.
But it all started of my mom and dad. My dad was a minister and had issues with mental health, and he was uh, manic depressive and a little bit of bipolar in there. And there was an issue with infidelity of him with my mom. I walked in on that. I walked in on him trying to commit suicide because he kind of made peace with this point of he was worth more dead than alive to his family without having any kind of recourse to say like, hey, what do you guys think about it? Just kind of went and tried that. Thank God it didn't work out, but it was just one of those things that I saw that and it really had an imprint on me as
Right,
a start as a kid, and it turned into so many things of anxiety that I had, people pleasing, all these type of things that
right.
come out of a result of trauma. And it only took the last couple of years for me that I started to really unwind a lot of that. I always just thought, well, people have it worse, or things happen to other people that I was aware of that I'm like, man, I actually am pretty lucky. And just because someone has a worse situation or a more unfortunate situation doesn't mean you need to not untangle your trauma.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
I went through that a ton, and then my mom passed away about 11 years ago, and that really opened up to what I'm doing more than ever now on the psychology side of everything. Is I was in a place down bad. I didn't know how to kind of process her death. She was the most important person in my world, and I handled it as badly as I think anyone can. That I kind of treated it
Right.
like I would say. Obviously, I knew the levity. I was at her funeral, so like I knew what happened,
Right.
but I almost was treating it like she was on vacation. Like I'd see her or talk to her again,
A little bit of
and
denial. Sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah. And at first it worked. And it was like I was getting by. If you looked at like a slideshow of me to my brother and my sister, they were still really struggling early on. It looked like I kind of transitioned out of it and I was okay. But then each holiday and each anniversary, all those kind of things that you remember your loved ones for, made it harder and harder because I didn't deal with it. And I was kind of pushing that off. And I had a therapist really drill into me and say, Dave, you're as miserable as I've ever seen you in the 2 years you've been here. Um, how about you go back to music? How much bad? Because I stepped away from music because my mom taught me everything. So I just
Gotcha.
had this internal mindset, and like literally, it was the narrative that I was telling myself that it's going to be too painful. I can't do it. And yeah, the therapist just at that point, she's like, "You're as miserable as you can be. How much worse can it really get?"
Right. Right. Right.
And she was right. So I got into that, and it was just life changing. And then it realized how much of a peace that brought me, even though helped me deal with the trauma that losing my mom and then my
Sure.
dad a few short years after that. Um, and yeah, it just kind of really inspired me that I was able to start helping people. And then I really was like, all right, I've got a platform here. How can I really help on the mindset, psychology, neuroscience, epigenetics? I wanted to learn everything about like what we are, and why we make the decisions we make.
Yep.
And the more you can kind of drill into who you are and what affects you and those things, you have more of a say in that story than you would think. So many times the story we tell ourselves, we talk ourselves out of a lot. But if
Mm,
you start really like drilling in and knowing, okay, if I do A, and go out really late till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. one night. I need to give my body sleep the next couple days. And most of us don't really plan like that. And it was just something that really worked for me. And I found other people who struggle with ADHD like I do have been able to have a path of, okay, this is how I can kind of, I know it started off rocky. This is how we navigate and get back to
Right, right,
normalcy and
right,
calm.
right. It sounds like the moment you described there sounds like kind of the pivotal moment. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because that oftentimes when you can pinpoint that and you can see where sort of life is going, and all of a sudden, boom, and then things elevate, and it sounds like that's what happened for you.
Absolutely. It's a lot of the stuff of Tony Robbins going into what happens if the worst thing that ever happened to you is the best thing that ever happened to you.
Mm,
And it already happened to you either way. So it's all how you approach it. And it's where I got the name of for my company too. Another angle is how do we look at the problems and issues we're dealing with at another spot? Because
yeah,
you could be looking at the same accident, one from 1 mile away, one from 20 miles away, and your viewpoints look very different. And the person from 20 miles away has a more direct view of everything that's happening around it, where when you're too close, it can get contorted and you can only kind of see your version of it. So it's really finding the other ways of how are other people are going to look at it. How's another way you can look at it so it's healthier, so it's not causing the stress and anxiety that it was for me in the past.
curious how you talked about the sort of combining sort of neuroscience and I guess the mindset coaching and psychology. You sort of brought those together. Why is that such a unique approach?
So it's the difference of psychology is obviously what our brains are doing and what we're feeling and all that end of it. And then you get into neuroscience is why the brain does it. And then epigenetics is so much of I learned this side of when you are really in that flight or flight mode and that stress level and cortisol is just like targeted and going,
Hmm.
it can really just unwind you and really make you sick. It can have such control over your life that it's why people go through those inner child healing meditations and things like that. Is when you have those issues, you're able to kind of rebound and figure out where was the source of this. A lot of the stuff that we think doesn't bother us, and then if you go back to and actually try to think of where you were when that happened, and you go through it, you start having tears come down because you're like, oh,
Right.
I thought I was over it, but you're not. So yeah, it having that angle of it really like pushed through so much of what I was able to help for myself and then teach others as well.
Got you. I think it's worth mentioning your book. Want to give us the title there? It's a very long title, so I want to make sure. Let's hear from you first, and I'll give it a shot after.
Yeah, you got it. It's going to be called Navigate the Noise. I was really concerned after COVID of I was looking at some current neuroscience studies of what was going on with attention span,
Okay.
and just from COVID alone, a normal adult, the attention span went down by like 7 to 8 seconds. So it was like 30 something seconds, and then it was down in the 20s. And the main direct line they were able to compare to was social media with Reels, TikTok,
Mm,
YouTube Shorts, whatever you want to say, those 30-second videos that are just going whatever. And that became our attention span. And that's what a lot of people are doing at their work every day is that, okay, I'm really focused for 30 seconds. And then my brain, I've got to check my phone, I do whatever. So what I did within the book is I wanted to find common sense and natural ways for us to be able to come off stress if we need to. Finding things that like within the neuroscience thing of way our brain works, in very simple terms, is the same part of the brain that processes anger, depression, sadness, all those nasty emotions, frustration, anger, any of that, is the same part of the brain that processes being grateful. And if you can truly, if you're in the mode of, oh my God, this is like, I've got this tomorrow and I'm not getting enough sleep, and like your mind's going down that road of just kind of like not productive and very anxiety ridden, and you can stop yourself in the source. What are three things you're grateful for? And it really just, it stops the anxiety, at least for that baseline of where you are. You're able to disrupt the pattern and start over with something new of what can help. And so there are lots of issues. That's one that I go throughout the book, but I saw that there was an issue of there's a lot of people who are struggling with this. I work with a
mm,
lot of musicians who are in their early to mid 20s, and this is a problem. And it's just one of those things that if these are going to be productive people in the workforce and in whatever capacity, we need to do something to kind of fix some of these issues that we've just
yeah.
kind of let run rampant and are really having a negative effect on society.
So you talk about navigating the noise, and and going through the challenges and the distractions of life, they're out there. We know that. We know there's lots and
Yeah.
lots and lots. And I'm here chatting with you now, and I'm sure my phone will kind of go off at some point. I had to silence that, and
Yeah.
I had to block out the idea of saying no, no. I'm here with David right now, so I don't care what's happening with my phone, as an example. And so
Mhm.
that's sort of the for me at least, that's one of the sort of the mental things that I've got to do to maintain my presence, stay here in the now, and again, focus. What kind of other things that people can do every day that can help them sort of stay on that path? That's just my thing, what I do for me, but I'm sure there's
Yeah.
others too, right?
So I can give you something that is similar to that, but then is also based in the science of where our brains go when we sleep. So if you're operating normally, sleeping normally, and it's kind of that range, we all have that feeling of when you start feeling tired and you go to lay down because you're going to fall asleep in the next probably 10 to 20 minutes, if not
Right.
sooner. But it's usually that range. So if you could do this very simple thing, it will have one of the biggest impacts on your life that you'll ever see. And I'm not trying to understate that. It's truly, or
Okay.
overstate
Okay.
that. It's truly, it is what it is. So the 10 minutes before you fall asleep and the 10 minutes when you first wake up, those
Hmm.
two blank 10 minutes things
Yep.
is when your brain is still partially in theta status. And when your
Yes.
brain is in theta, you are more prone to believe your subconscious of what you're feeding yourself, what you're telling yourself. So if you, in those 10 minutes, can either internally to yourself, or if you do affirmations at a mirror, however you do it, praying, whatever your mentality is, do those affirmations then. Last 10 minutes, first 10 minutes. Do not put your phone out. Be done with your phone for those last 10 and first 10. Because what happens is when you have that and you're that really essentially talking to your subconscious directly, or as close as you'll ever be in those 10-minute stretches, and you wake up because your alarm goes off, and the first thing you do is you grab your phone to turn off the alarm, and then you look at your notifications. And if you were really stressed about something that was going to happen at work that next day, you're looking at emails or texts that are like re-triggering and bringing in
Right.
that
Right.
anxiety of what's
Right.
happening to you. So the simple force of just doing those 10 minutes before and after, it's going to put you into a calm state of mind, instead of that when you're in that theta process and you're feeding it anxiety, you're literally setting yourself off as bad as you can right off from the start. So I told people, if you affirmations aren't for yourself, try this simple one, because this worked for me. And I was someone who always had insomnia, always had sleeping issues,
Yep.
that I would sleep 10 hours and wake up feeling tired. And so I knew that that was an issue, because I was always telling myself. I caught it when I started listing my limiting beliefs. And when my brain was kind of going off, I did an exercise for a week where I wrote down everything that was like a negative or could be on the negative side of all that. And it's amazing when you realize, oh, I thought I only had these a certain amount of limiting thoughts. I had a whole lot of them. And it's any
Mm.
of those thoughts of when you have a goal or you're excited about something, and then internally you get scared, and it's the you can't do it, you're going to fail, you always
Right.
fail. That like
Right.
internal just kind of negative noise is so anytime you think that, try to write it down and then catch yourself. And the whole idea of writing it down is then go into what you're grateful for, like what we talked about earlier. Because if you can do that, it's crazy of now that whenever I get stressed, automatically I'm thinking of things that I'm grateful for, and whatever. And it's a whole brain trick of you're rewiring your through neuroplasticity, you're rewiring the way your brain thinks, and that when that stress does come up, you're not going to react like you used to. You're changing
Right.
it so that you're actually in a calm set of mind that you can make the best decision possible.
So I love that frame of thinking and the whole concept of rewiring. So just a couple of days ago, I got into a conversation with a friend of mine, and she goes, I'm really annoyed. She has a piece of property and she has tenants, and she goes, I was really annoyed. One of my tenants, something happened, he didn't tell me. It really annoyed me. And so we started talking about this. Okay, so he didn't tell you something, like, and so the conversation got into, okay, so this thing that he didn't tell you, was it life or death? Well, no, it's just someone had written something on the wall and messed up the wall, and he didn't tell me. I had to go there and see it myself. So I said, okay, so you're mad at him that he didn't do something to give you calm. Like, why don't you work on giving yourself that piece of calmness that you're looking for, right? And so
Yep.
so what that is rewiring, kind of that same kind of that's the same vein of thinking, where it's like I should depend on someone else to tell me something in advance so I can be calm when I come home and I don't see this thing that would upset me, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
What happened to just rewiring how you process this thing, because it's really what it's about, right? it's
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
it's her perception of how she sees this thing, and it upsets her. So what about this thing upsets you? Understanding that process, and that's kind of the conversation we're having. So I'm hearing that loud and clear from you.
Oh, yeah.
It's your approach to how you see things and altering that, and that's a rewiring process that you refer to.
Absolutely. And it's if you think about it too, it's the how you feel when you the best way example, because I do music, so I say this all the time. A song comes on that was really popular when you were in high school. You're talking about number one, you heard it on the radio all the time.
Yep.
And you hear that song come on, and you haven't heard it maybe for 5, 7, 10 years, whatever the threshold is. And you get that feeling again when you hear that,
100%.
like it comes through you. So our body remembers the good, the bad, the in between. And essentially, if you think of it as our body's like a computer and it has no filter, it doesn't care the good or bad you're going to take it takes it all. So if you're feeding yourself more bad or more negative, more limiting, more anxiety, that's your diet of what you're getting out of it. And so why I bring up the music is so much of how we react is, and I try to explain it that it's, if we can get it as simple as possible, we don't dislike other people, we don't
No.
hate other people, we
No.
don't understand them. That's the main comprehension. And when there is an issue or a butting of heads, what's the difference of understanding what are we missing here, and how can we bridge that gap? The more I find, I've worked across the country, across the world now with some music clients. People are genuinely good, and it's there are people who are looking for other that's good in the world. And if
Sure.
you look at the news, you think it's bad, and it's like that everything's going to hell every single day. And I got to the point where I was even falling into that maybe 7, 8 years ago. And now that I see it, I'm like, no, that's not how it is. That's if you go out and you experience the world. Like I live in New York City, it's not homeless everywhere, it's not the crime everywhere that is
Right.
being like reported. I'm like, I've worked on this current project I'm at for the last 8 months, and I haven't seen any of that in my direct line of view. And I take the train every day, so it's
Right.
just one of those things that,
Yep.
and a lot of that I believe too comes into when you talk about our brains, the way they work. We have a
Hmm.
RAS, reticular activating system, and
Hmm.
it works like the whole red car theory. If you ever heard that, or if you bought a new
Yes.
car, and that
Yes.
you see
Yes.
that car, you may not have seen it before you
Yep.
saw it in the light. You're like, oh, I like that. It looks good.
That's right.
And then you go on
You
the
can't stop
highway.
seeing it.
Yeah, and you see it everywhere. And it's our brain is a filter that it's going to
Yes.
direct to where you want it to go.
Yes.
So if you're feeding it the anxiety and stress and all that, your brain is looking for that, and it's going to
Yeah.
find that. And if you're looking for the good and you stay in that positive frame, and I always a game changer for me, because I thought for many years I was doing things wrong.
Yep.
Feeling an emotion, anger, sadness, any of that, that is not a problem. I've made it a game with myself, and it's so helpful in reality if you can do this as well. That, okay, you get thrown off of your game for a little bit, mark down when it happened, and if it made you upset for an hour, see if it can only upset you for 45 minutes this time, then
Right.
30, and then like work your way down. So the reaction isn't a problem. It's stewing and festering it and letting it kind of ruin your day, ruin the event
Yes.
that you're at or doing whatever. And if you can just make that very calm thing, is I had a really wise mentor mention to me 2 years ago, and it's one of the cooler things because I've been able to share this so many times, and I've never had one person who's like, yeah, I disagree with you, or has called me off wrong. So maybe you'll be the first. We'll see. But I
Oh.
got challenged this, so I'll challenge you with the same thing. Give me three really great decisions you made when you were very angry.
Yeah. No. No.
And
No.
so
It
my
doesn't. It
mentor
doesn't.
then,
It does. It doesn't. Like you just can't think properly, and your brain goes into well. I mean, and I actually remember sort of hearing the science behind it, right? And
Mhm.
our brains use blood flow, the circulation of blood flow, to actually work and make decisions. And if we're getting angry, or even if we're scared, right,
Mhm.
our bodies go into flight or fight mode. And guess what? The blood in our bodies goes to our major organs, our stomachs, our arms, our legs, all. So we've got no, we can't think properly with our brains because there's no blood flowing. So no, it's no, you can't make good decisions without
Yeah.
when you're in an angered state. No.
Yeah, and it's like a really quick, cool way of it is how much water is involved in our bodies. We know water is just one of the most
Yeah.
abundant resources between our body and what's in the world. And take a stainless steel pan, like you're making pasta or cooking pasta, and you put the water in the pan. before you boil that, and if you look straight down, you see your reflection. You can, it's clear. You see the water go down, you see the reflection back of part of your face or whatever the case is.
Yep.
And then you turn on the heat to it and it starts boiling. Even in science, it's a totally different element at this point of boiling water to cold water. It's literally, it registers differently, and that's no different with us. And
Right. Right.
I realized that I've been able to get ahead of, I'm an Aries, I'm a hothead, I'm stubborn, I've got all those attributes to me. And I realized that and then the flip side of what I questioned to you before is that we know we don't make good decisions when we're angry. That's the obvious that comes out, but we can really remember all the things we said when we were angry, which we could wish we could take back. That
Sure.
it's the text you shouldn't have sent, the words you should have sent, whatever it is. We've all had that. So it's I just started really coming up with, all right, let's locate when we're in those modes, feeling like that, and let's make no major decisions. Let's
That's right.
anything like just put it on,
Stop.
like say I'll figure it out tomorrow or I'll figure it out tonight, but nothing good is coming out of right now. And it's
No.
just that simple practice will make your life infinitely better just on a day to day. You'll if you take aim at that, you'll really make
Sure.
a big difference.
But I mean, I will. I mean, you did ask a question. I promise you, I'll put some thought into. Even if coming up with one, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
wait for it though. I challenge, probably more likely not going to happen. So,
yeah.
but no, it is a great question to ask. You know, you talked about artists and I guess musicians and creatives that you
Mm.
work with, right? Is that's part of the
Yep.
group? And actually, it's funny. Just the point I was making on music, you reference, you know, hearing a song. You know, like as a kid, I was a big fan of Public Enemy, right? And every
Hey,
time,
yep.
I vividly remember hearing they had a song called Rebel Without a Pause, and and the moment you hear Chuck D's voice go, yes, the rhythm, the rebel, I lost my mind. And I remember
Yeah.
hearing that. Like I always lost as a kid, a teenager, I absolutely loved it. And I remember years and years and years later hearing that opening, right? And he's got this
Mhm.
booming voice where I don't know if you're familiar, that goes, yes, the rhythm, the rebel. And I lost my mind again. It just
Yeah,
went
yeah.
right back to where I was, right? And so,
Mhm.
yeah, our bodies certainly, I have an expression of our bodies keep the score, right? Things
Yeah.
do retain and sticks with us. Um,
100%.
so on that, you know, I had to get that out by the way, the Chuck D reference.
Yeah, no, I
But
love it. I love it.
the point around the mindset coaching, and I'm imagining that can do a lot to help those creatives who sometimes run into like blocks or mental blocks or those creative blocks as an example. I get that's
Mm.
understanding some of these tricks and these neural science tips and techniques that are good for that.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Can you restate the question?
No, well,
Mm.
I asked it a yes or no question, but I really want to know
Oh, yeah.
how. Maybe that's thanks for answering the question. But more
No
so,
worries.
I want you to sort of explain, elaborate further how that how it can help really eliminate those blocks.
So a mix of different things that if you're looking for activities to start to kind of undo, like if you know there's something you don't like to do, or you don't like your reaction to it. This has happened to me, so I can try to give you a decent example of what I'm talking about. Is I just recently got married, and my wife had pointed out to me about something that I was wrong
Okay,
about, and in the moment I didn't want to hear it, and I was like very just like focused, and then that's that stubborn side.
sure.
And her and I have like an open agreement that we talk about is that when we know we see the other seeing red, just make sure they don't make any bad decisions, but kind of let them resolve on their own, then come back and ask it. And she didn't even need to come back to me. I went back to her, I think 2 hours later, because I was just like, no, you handled that 100% right. I was wrong. I was like, and it's something I knew I wanted to change. And so many times we get into the whole, you can't teach an old dog new tricks and all those type of things. So where this goes, and this is what some of the numbers that blew my mind about it, is we think roughly anywhere from about 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Those are
Okay,
micro decisions, every little thing that you do. I've got to brush my teeth now, I've got to
yeah,
do that. So roughly 60 to 70,000 based off the math. And a study came out that about by the time you're like 33 to 35, 90% of everything you do, 90 to 93% of everything you do is automated. You're doing the same thing over and over again and on repeat. And so so I use another music example because this happens to me. I'm a big music guy as well. How many times is one of those songs you love comes on the radio and immediately you're very happy because you're right, you hear the intro, you're like, oh,
yeah.
okay, let's
Chuck
go.
D comes on, you lose your mind. Yeah,
Yeah, right. And then it feels like maybe 20 seconds has passed and the song's over.
Yeah.
because you were in another zone thinking about whatever, driving through traffic, doing whatever. Like
Yeah.
it happens. And that lost time, you were in that automated mode. You just weren't.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's frightening when you start realizing all that stuff of where you go. But then I started linking that up with the mindset of how many thoughts we're thinking. And then if it
Yes.
is negative, it's my own mentality regarding the law of attraction and manifestation is so many people will go to bed, say their prayers, say their manifestations, whatever they're trying to improve upon
Yep.
themselves, maybe 5, 10 minutes before they go to sleep or as they're getting ready to wind down for the night. And then their lives, the stress, everything else kind of runs rampant. And I really became highly obsessed with the mentality of we need to be thinking as much into that positive state of mind as much as possible. And if you're only giving it 10 minutes a day, and then the other 23 hours and 15 minutes, you're either sleeping or in stress and anxiety,
Yep.
it's nothing's going to change for you. So
No.
it's actively finding the thing. And Joe Dispenza went into it is that when you really commit to a new like wanting to change this, you end up having like kind of a mini death of your old self. You're not the same. The things you used to love kind of change, and it's all part of that path of we all want to be better. And it's the path to enlightenment is you really just go through all these stages, and you realize, all right, it took all these stages to get where I am, but not all of them were positive. I had
Right.
negatives that I had to learn from. So
Right.
don't be too hard on yourself, but we can always get better. And the one thing that I always love to share, this has been I can't tell you, dude, it's changed my life. On my end, is that at the end of every night, I have a clear idea of where I want to be in 5 years and 10 years. And
Hmm.
at the end of every night, I say to myself, did I get closer to where I want to be or farther away? And
Love it.
if I didn't eat right one day, if I missed a workout, if I missed something that I thought was important, I catch that at the end of every day and I know, all right, I need to fix that moving forward. Or I did this, and at the end of every day, I'm like, I upset someone I cared about because I made this choice. Could it have been different? Like walk through all those things. Neville Goddard went through all those. A lot of his mentality to become enlightened was if something went wrong in your life, close your eyes and visualize how it could have gone right. What would have been the other reaction? And there's so many different ways that you could say is that like you're trying to rewrite stuff in the quantum. People could take that for what it is, but it's very simply the fact of you're closing that end of
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
something ended and there was like something traumatic or triggering or upsetting about that, and you revisualize it and you change it, you change the whole narrative and the whole footing of it. It's not something you're scared of anymore. Now you're in your brain, oh, I know how to conquer that if that comes at me again.
Yeah.
So you could just be the mentality of that's how it happens. Life sucks. This is what's always happening to me. Or you could be like, I don't want that to happen again. How do I actively fix that? Nothing fixes right on the first try. Think of this like the gym. For me personally, I started meditating a ton
Okay.
and really getting into that angle of everything. And it hit on so many angles of a lot of the triggering emotions that I had, the anxiety. It brought it all back up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I was a people pleaser and I liked being around people. And when I was around other people, I could forget about everything else that was going on. I could kind of just like entrench myself in their lives or what they're going through and just kind
Right.
of forget about everything for a little bit. And those problems don't go away. So
No. No.
going through meditation, I hated it. And I was pushing myself just to get through 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then
Yeah.
15. And now I do 2 hour ones and I look forward to it. But
Lovely.
it was literally like going to the gym and working out is if you haven't worked out in 10 years, and I hadn't meditated at this point in like 20 years, truly, or tried like really deep prayer like that. And it was struggle. Like I didn't like sitting with myself. I would get anxiety and like I feel my hands twitching or like itching or whatever's going
Sure.
on
Sure.
running through your head. And it's just kind of digging through. And I had heard Joe Dispenza shared it about one of those things is if you're experiencing that, you're doing it right. And so many of us think we're
Mm.
doing it wrong and they want to stop. It's like, no, is your body's fighting because this is new. This is like it's not liking
Right.
it or not whether not
Right.
liking it, but it just doesn't know it. And
Yeah.
it's your body's looking for that automatic response and answer that it's used to. And when you start throwing new stuff at it, there's that little bit of a freak out.
Sure.
But it's the way of it's I always look at it as it's you're resetting your feet, you're setting your foundation and building up from there.
I am I'm such a big fan of self-talk. Um, uh, I'm so much a fan. I think I do it way too much because I'm always in my head talking to myself, it seems, and perfectly happy and fine with it, and I'm even and okay with the responses I tell myself back. Like it's a
Yeah.
wonderful place in my head to be. I love it. But um I mean, I'm making light of it, but there
Mhm.
is really some positive benefits to how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself. When you make mistakes, the way you forgive yourself and give yourself grace.
Mhm.
These are all really important things to be able to master, because if in your head you're beating yourself up,
Yep.
outside it's not going to be any better,
No.
right? Like, it's going to be
Mhm.
worse. And so if there's any place that you need to show yourself that grace and that compassion, understanding, it's in our own
Yep.
heads.
Yeah, and what was so I was always a big sports fan growing up. I always I got tied to whatever sports stories are going on, and
Yep.
I share this one because it's right in time with what you're saying. There is Cristiano Ronaldo. Even people who don't know soccer know Cristiano
Sure.
Ronaldo and Leo Messi. They're just known as these two eras of like what Pele and Maradona were for me growing up. Is like this. These guys have become that.
Yes.
This was 2 years ago at the Euros, 2 or 3 years ago. Uh, Ronaldo has a free kick, ends up tying it and scoring the free kick. But this is what really stood out about that is they have a video of him as he's sitting there, and someone was able to literally like lip read what he's saying, and he's saying scoring goals comes naturally to you. Goals come in all the time. This is easy for you. You do this all the time, and like literally ends it with you've done this so many times, just do it again. And it's like for me
Beautiful.
that was chilling because I'm like, man, you're going through, and this is the guy who's the greatest of the great, and he's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
And you realize that that's how he got there. And you talk about like that also leads to so much with visualization. There were studies that were done that they took musicians and they took people who were lifting weights. There were a couple different studies that they tested this, and it was the one control group. There were three control groups essentially. So we'll talk about the musician one.
Okay.
There were people playing the piano. So you had first group of people actually played the piano. The second group of people closed their eyes and imagined they were playing the piano but didn't touch anything,
Yep.
just did it with their brain. And then the third group did nothing. It's just that was kind of like your sample. So as they got back, the people who were actually playing the piano had the biggest gains. That like their brain activity and stuff like that. That is obviously because they were doing it. But to a lesser effect, the people who imagined doing it had very similar brain activity
Yep.
just by imagining it. So it became this theory is like if you can imagine and you can visualize things, how that really goes. And then when that became fascinating to me is between that Ronaldo story, and then you talk about people who talk about visualization, and you're talking Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant,
Yes.
Michael
Yes.
Phelps, Muhammad
Yes.
Ali, the greats of the great. That's the one thing that they have in common. They don't have the same religion in common. They don't always have all the same beliefs, but they all visualize and they all listen. They try to look at situations. Michael Phelps credited to should have gotten a silver in one of his last races, but he
Mhm.
said he visualized hundreds of times of him getting tied up on one of the edge in between the two lanes, and it happened. And he knew what to do because he did like literally it was he went through that in his brain 200 times before. That was normal to him. Okay, I do this now. And whereas if it's happening to you for the first time, you get that shock and you
Yeah.
don't know what
Yeah.
to do for a second. You're
Yeah.
just trying to get your
So,
bearings and trying to re-coordinate.
yeah.
So
And
yeah,
hopefully you don't
when
get mad, because if you get mad, then you're gonna bad decisions after that. We know that, right? So
absolutely. And like there's something that I can self-admit to, and I think a lot of other people have, and I want to get the conversation out there is I was visualizing a lot of bad things happening to me all the time. I've got the ADHD brain, and you gave me a scenario, and I was thinking 30 ways it could go wrong,
yeah.
not where it could go right. I was always looking for the negative, and it was just kind of that's where what I found in life. I found a lot of the negative when I was thinking that way. And amazing the turn of I've done the opposite and really just fully embraced because anything I pass on to any of my clients, I'm trying myself. And
Sure.
I've just seen so many positive reactions to it. I'm like, all right, this really works for me. And for everyone, it's going to be a little bit different. You need to do anything exactly like someone else. You have to find what works for you, what makes you feel comfortable, finding that calm, finding that center of where no matter what, you can kind of get back into that setting and just really get back to what you need to do. And if you can find that, it just becomes a game changer of anytime you get upset, just be like, all right, how do I get calm first? All right, then I'd start
Let's do
figuring
it.
out what do I do from there.
Yeah, love it. I love it. I so agree. Curious now, and keep in line with this podcast, as we're talking about ways that people can shift and transform their minds. What's the most audacious shift move that folks can make to transform their lives from your perspective?
Sure. So, I mean, and this can be whether you're sick or whether you're struggling with something. finding some intention that is going to really keep something positive for you, that you can really like, you're working towards something.
Okay.
And then having just the wherewithal of every day, where are you finding it? So many people, if they hear anxiety, they almost like claim up. They don't really know how to react to that. Anxiety can be a good thing. Anxiety is our body's fire alarm saying something's wrong, something's not
Yes.
right with what you're
Yes.
doing, and you need to fix something. And we've become a society that it's, you get anxiety, here's a pill. Here, I take a pill, fix it. And you're not fixing your problems that way. It's you're not really getting into what's happening. All you are is numbing that pain. And it's the equivalent of, all right, your fire alarm's going off in your, or smoke alarm's going off in your house, and you put some tape over it because I don't want to hear that anymore. And I press the button, just be done with it. I don't want to have to deal with that. And that's what a lot of people are doing with their bodies and their souls, with how they're living. So if we can really drill into, find what's wrong, listen to what's wrong. And I mean, there's so many things that we could do with mindset stuff, that when you think positive, just the mindset of being in a positive mindset compared to a negative, the negative, it can downregulate genes, it could cause sickness, or it can lead you opening to diseases that you wouldn't be possible otherwise. Whereas if you had a positive frame of mind, it's, you're not as vulnerable. It's, your immunity is stronger. You produce more different components within your body that are really going to make you feel better and do well. So it's all a concept of, if you can really dig in and find the little synchronicities that work for you, you start seeing, okay, there's a path to this, and this is where I'm going. And when you
Right.
get that feel, it really does
I
click
love it.
in.
I love it. I love it. No, I think it's great, and I love the insights, David. This has been awesome to spend this time with you. For
Me
for
too.
listeners that wanted to connect with you directly, learn more about your work, or grab a copy of your book, where can we send them?
Sure. The best way to reach out to me is either by email, another angle consult at Gmail. There's no ing at the end of that email. And then, but also Instagram, David McKee 84, and another angle consulting on Instagram. Send me a DM if there's anything you wanted to talk about. Let's get the conversation going. I respond to almost anybody on that end, because so much of this is dealing with the mental health and
Sure.
questions that we just don't know that we can ask. I mean, I always tell people to know my situation. I grew up in a thing where you didn't talk about mental health. You didn't talk about if you
Mm,
were anxious about something that was made you less of a man, or it didn't,
right.
you weren't being tough, or who you should be if you do that. And it's led to a lot of empty feeling people.
That's
So
right.
I really try to put out there is, if you are feeling that, shoot me out and send me a question, send me what you're going through, and we'll try to figure it out.
And we didn't really touch on this, but I think we did so indirectly with respects to,
Mm.
our true potential. Because if we're
Yeah.
doing these things, we're moving closer to that person that we're supposed to be, right? We're living
Yeah.
our true truth, as opposed to one that we tell ourselves is the truth and not really it isn't, and belong to someone else. We're just following what they told us to do, or it looked like a good idea. Like, it's really
Yeah.
is ours. We're taking ownership of it, and we're walking. So really,
Very good.
the point though that underscores a lot what we talked about here is living our true potential, right? And there's lots of times where we'll and I know, again, we didn't specifically define it as such, but I think everything that we talked about is around that. And I think it's so important, because we've got that. I talked to you in the beginning about, we've got our path that we're on, and we're moving that direction where we should. And if we're doing some of these these, I was going to say, Jedi mind tricks, if you will, but
Yeah.
really exercising these tips and tricks, and doing things differently, and thinking about different options. I even like the 10 seconds before you go to bed at night when you wake up in the morning. Like, I mean, I'm thinking, like, I'll keep saying, hey, you're audacious, you're audacious before I go to bed. And,
Yeah.
all kinds of great things will happen. But the idea is, it allows you to really live your true potential, truly live your truth, as opposed to what we tell ourselves the truth is. It really isn't, right? It just sounds like
Mhm.
a good idea because you heard someone else say it. It really is ours. And so thank you for that. Thank you for the insights, the knowledge, and just the inspiration to transform our lives. And I appreciate you, David, really, for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you. It was great being here.
Awesome. Back we are here on the podcast, and wow, that conversation with David was enlightening, to say the least. You know, the one insight that really hit me was his perspective on anxiety as a signal, not a burden. Reframing it this way transforms emotional struggles into opportunities for growth rather than obstacles. I also loved how he emphasized daily reflection and visualization. You know, these practices give us control over our journey, letting us intentionally shape our path instead of drifting aimlessly. If you want to connect with David directly, of course, his contact details are in the show notes below. He's open to helping anyone explore mindset coaching or mental health strategies. He really is a valuable resource and has lots and lots of insight to share. So again, I encourage listeners to check him out. You know, as we wrap up, remember this, your mind is a map waiting to be explored. By understanding your signals, steering your emotions, and reflecting on your choices, you can chart a course toward a life fulfilled with possibility and audacity. Here's a small action step this week. Notice one anxious thought, reflect on what it's pointing you toward, and take one bold step in that direction. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, and share this podcast. Your support helps us reach even more people. Live boldly and intentionally. Thank you for being here. Keep navigating, keep exploring, and above all, keep living audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be all